Carlton?
Here.
Mr. Long?
Here.
Mr. Matheson? Mr. Payne?
Here.
Ms. Reese?
Here.
Okay, and if we can, let's stand and have a moment of silence. And I'm going to ask Coach Curley, if he would, to lead us in the pledge. Coach Curley.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first thing I'd like to do is to congratulate our two board members who went through the election this time, Ms. Reese and Mr. Payne. Did a good job. We're glad to have you back. Makes it a little bit easier to know that we don't have to go through all the newness of other people. So we're glad to have you two back. You've been excellent board members. And I think the one thing, you know, that most people recognize is that you're independent voices, and that's what we want, everybody. I mean, we can all discuss things and disagree, and we don't always agree. And I think that makes for better decisions.
Thank you.
Next thing is employee recognition. Did we have?
No,
Okay, not doing employee recognition.
not till we get back in.
All right, and we didn't have any visitors. All right, so we have the consent agenda, and this is approval of the consent agenda. If you would, look over that. If there's anything that you want to pull off.
Move we approve the consent agenda.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Long to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a second from Mr. Payne. Any discussion? All right, would you call the roll?
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes.
I just-
Student board member?
I've got her.
I just have one question. We have a number on the contract, Board of Education with Sutherland. Do we have a number on that number of kids?
Not yet, but we ended last year with either 8 or 9,
Okay.
so I imagine we'll have that in again.
All right.
We won't know that till they start school.
Did you have?
I do. Ms. Patterson couldn't be here this evening, but she sent her report in, so I'm going to read that for her. Good evening and happy first month of school. Though we're not immediately returning to the classrooms, with consideration of our students' and staff's health, we are working to make an educational environment in the comfort of each student's home. That being said, we are providing devices for students who do not currently have those. The most recent pickup was earlier today from 1 to 6, and the next scheduled device pickup will be announced soon. If your student has not been in contact with their homeroom teacher about needing a device, please do so as soon as possible. School officially begins Monday, August the 17th. Students, please check your emails regularly for communications from your teachers. Upcoming assignments should be communicated through this form, so please check for an email from your teachers or reach out to them. Remember that each student has been given a school-issued email, and directions to access it can be found on the county website. Fall sports and extracurricular activities will be updated based upon guidelines set due to the number of COVID cases in the near future. Staff is always available to reach out to with questions and concerns. Let's make this year, as unique as it is, one of the best yet. And that's from Lauren Patterson.
That sounds like it's from you.
She's doing a good job.
Done for your job.
She is.
All right, next item is to approve the refund of the Washington DC field trip funds to the former 8th grade from last year Johnson County Middle School students. Funds are being refunded to Johnson County Middle School by the travel agency. The initial cost of the trip was $450 for students, $900 for a student and a parent.
And we do have to have approval of this. We have to have recorded minutes in our board agenda for the auditor. I know you had the attachment from Mr. Cruz. You know, I'm sad that they didn't get to go to Washington. They tried as hard as they could. They even waited up until July and was going to try to go, and it still just wasn't feasible. So based on that, you know, it was $450 for a student, but they don't get the full amount back. They did have the form that each parent signed out when they first decided to go on the trip. I think they had, if I remember right, 2 that wanted the insurance. Was that correct, Stephen? Do you remember?
I think so.
2 that wanted the insurance, so that covered all of the cost. no one else wanted the insurance. So they'll get $365 back. So we have to have approval from you all before the checks can be sent back to the parents.
So 365 of the 450 or double that for the,
Right,
okay.
yes.
Okay. We have a motion?
Yeah, make a motion, we approve it.
Okay, Mr. Payne made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Reese has seconded. Is there any discussion on this? All right, if you would, call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlson?
Yes. Next item is to approve the Tennessee Connections Academy Johnson. Is that all they say? Is
Yeah, that's
Johnson?
ours,
Okay.
yeah.
Enrollment policy.
And I'm gonna turn that over to Edna.
They just have to have this on file, for their records. We are already, we were capped at 100. We have already met the 100 in the K-8 school. And, I think there are 9 enrolled in the Tennessee Connections Academy at Johnson for high school, but they have 500 on the waiting list.
We did send a waiver in to the commissioner. For some reason, she capped us, but she also capped Robertson County as well. So we're just waiting to hear back if she's approved our waiver, because by law, they can't really set a cap, but she did. So we're just waiting to hear back from that. Once they get that approved, then that'll take that cap away and they can have 1,500.
We've got 500 for high school waiting list or 500 total?
500 total.
Okay.
Is that from all over the state?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Did many folks from Johnson County take advantage of that? Do you know?
4 that I know of. I talked to the principal of the school yesterday. Jesse and I both did. And he says he is encouraging them when they go to the statewide to please consider going to just the one that we have here in the county. He, of course, by law cannot, say you need to go there.
Right.
But, so we do have 4 that did not want to go here,
Okay.
that I know of.
Do you anticipate that waiver to be waived?
I hope, but
I
Dr.
hope.
Simcox, is
I've sent
having a
it
very
twice.
hard time getting the commissioner to answer her emails.
Education.
Yes.
Did they give a reason why they kept it?
No, but they have a whole new department than what they had last year. When we talked to Dr. Causey at Robertson County, they had the same problem this year. Last year, they didn't get a cap, but it was a totally different department. So I don't know if it's because they have a new department in school approval, but they're having the same issues as we're having.
Okay. So there's a possibility of 609.
Yes,
That would be pretty good.
yeah.
Well, regardless, we need to approve the enrollment policy.
Yes, please.
All right,
Okay.
so did we get a motion on this yet? Okay, we got to talk.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve that.
Mr. Payne made a motion.
Second.
Mr. Long seconded. Call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlson?
Yes. Next item is second and final reading of TSBA recommended policy changes. We've got enrollment in college level courses, student discrimination, harassment, bullying, intimidation, and cyberbullying, Title IX and sexual harassment, student concerns, complaints, and grievances.
And again, these are TSBA recommended with enrollment in college level courses. They just updated the entire policy to align them to the state board requirements. For student discrimination, harassment, and bullying, intimidation, and cyberbullying, they changed that to meet the new Title IX grievance procedures. And the same thing with Title IX and sexual harassment. We had to meet the new Title IX grievance procedures. With student concerns, complaints, and grievances, they condensed it and focused on responding to general student complaints rather than creating a formal grievance policy. And our 2 complaint managers for those are Stephen and Paul, and they're actually going to a training in September on the new guidelines, so.
All right. Well, this is the second and final reading, so we do need a motion on this.
I move we approve those 4 policy changes.
Mr. Long's made a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
Mr. Payne's made a second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlton?
Yes. Next item, approve the HVAC service contract with Streets HVAC Services for the period of 1 year in the amount of $100,000 with 12 monthly installments.
I'm going to turn that over to Herbie.
This is the contractor that we currently use, and we have a good working relationship with him, so we would like to continue to use him if possible.
He does a very good job.
Okay, we have a motion?
Was this open for bids?
It was.
Is he the only one that,
We had a couple contractors come and look at it, but they wasn't interested. They never come to do the walkthrough with us, and I never received a bid from him.
okay, well,
So he was the only,
He was the only bid.
all right. I move we approve.
Payne's made a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Have a second for Mr. Long. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlton?
Yes. Next item is to approve the monitoring service agreement with GSC Security to monitor all school fire and security systems for the period of 1 year in the amount of $11,400 in 12 monthly installments.
I'm going to turn that over to Herbie as well.
And again, this is Jimmy Reynolds' company, GSC, and he does a great job working with us. Chase does a lot of work with him. You can't beat Jimmy. In the same case, nobody else came for the walkthrough, and nobody else turned in a bid. But both of these prices, this one and the last one you just voted on, they're less than last year due to one less school.
That was the question. I was getting ready to ask that question.
How much less?
Jimmy's, I think, was about $800, if I'm not mistaken. Streets was close to $4,000.
4,000? Wow. Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Reese. Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
A second from Mr. Payne. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlton?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton, if I can sort of add something here that Herbie and I talked about today. One of the things we'd like to bring in front of you all for September is with the bids and quotes. Right now, you know, we have to bid this out every year. There's nothing in policy that says it has to be every year. So we would like to provide you a new policy that says we will bid it out every 3 years on the contingency that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, instead of having to go through this process every single year.
We would like to have a renewal every year, being that both parties are still happy with what's going on. I think it would save a lot of labor, and I think we could get better service out of our contractors. If they see, okay, they can renew, they may not renew, I think it would work a lot better for us.
Okay.
State policy, I think, is 5 years, and if we go with a minimum, with a 3-year, and we don't have to renew, but we have the option to renew.
Would that be okay if we wrote that policy?
Which policy would we have to update? Do we have a current policy on that?
Well, our policy really is, and we looked at other systems' policy, our policy on bids and quotes, right now, there's no time limit. I think that's just something that you all have sort of set precedence that it's yearly, so we would like to put a statement in there saying, you know, based on what, you know, Mr. Adams just shared, that we would do it every 3 years, but renewal depending on.
That's fine.
So we just need to see if everybody agrees.
Yeah.
And we'll bring that to you in September.
We'll look at it.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Next item is the first reading of TSBA recommended policy changes. The 3 policies are suspension, expulsion, and remand. The second policy is alternative school programs. The third policy is child abuse and neglect.
Okay.
Dr. Simcox.
Yes, on 6.319, the alternate education, this just, last year, you know, they changed that where everyone had to be given the alternative education site, whether they were zero tolerance or just, we couldn't suspend the kid, period. We had to give them a placement. They did change that to clarify anyone that commits a zero tolerance offense can be suspended. They don't have to be placed at the alternative school. So that's updating based on state board regulations. For 6.316, which is suspension, it added 2 additional reasons to be suspended. That is marking, defacing, or destroying school property, or when behavior possesses a danger to persons or property or disrupts the educational process. And then the last one on 6.409, reporting child abuse. The General Assembly is now requiring us to have a designated coordinator at each school. And we do have that, but we just have to adopt that in our policy.
Any questions on those? All right, moving on. Approve the Granger County Schools usage of our contract price to purchase a special needs bus from Central States Bus.
I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Long. He's going to explain that.
So I had Mr. Nixon from the Bluebird contacted me a month or so ago asking. Granger County wanted to purchase a special needs bus off of our bid. That was a new process to me, so I did some research, talked to Tina, we talked to Russell. He said that is a common practice throughout the state. It's completely legal. It is of no liability or financial consequence to us. You just have to have board approval. So we feel like it would be a neighborly gesture to Granger County as well as to the vendor that we opted to go with because they had our low bid.
We done that with something not too long ago.
We did.
Piggybacked off somebody.
We piggybacked off someone.
Yeah, so we've done it.
So we just feel like it's a neighborly thing to do.
I move we approve.
Yeah, we have a
What's the
motion.
advantage to it? I mean, they just wouldn't have to write it.
It expedites the process.
Okay.
Because everybody, we still haven't had ours delivered. They're supposed to be here, I think, the end of the month. And so Granger County, I don't know the exact circumstances, but for whatever reason, they've determined a need. And if they're happy with the price, so they can expedite the process by piggybacking off of our bid.
Okay. All second.
Okay, we have a second from Mr. Payne. Any discussion or questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlton?
Yes. Okay, the next item is a discussion on athletics in regards to the liability issues in sports due to COVID-19. And I would like to ask Dr. Simcox, if she would, to discuss a little bit where we are with our vote last week, because I think that's important to us when we consider these next two items.
As far as with our students and staff
Students,
currently.
staff, computers, computer
Right.
lab, the church opening up, all
Right.
those.
I'll address that, and then we can talk about sports. We did have teacher work day today, and we have another one tomorrow. I know the middle school and high school handed out devices today. Mountain City does on Monday. I think Rome Creek does tomorrow. They did today. Doe did yesterday
And today
and then Laurel
is doing tomorrow.
is tomorrow. So far, I think we've had devices for everyone. I do want to say Mark III, Neil Browder called me this morning, and they're going to be donating. They have over 100 laptops because they're getting ready to redo their systems that they're going to donate to Johnson County Schools. So that is very good. Teachers are sending out emails. They're contacting their students. They're working hard to get information out. We're going to open up our computer labs for those that can't get a device or have internet access. Right now I feel pretty confident that we'll have enough devices for those that have requested them. Our teachers have been trained on the online platform. We're just ready to go. We miss our kids. I wish they were in the building, but as far as that right now, I think we're in the best possible place we could be as far as our virtual learning. We will find out Monday how it goes, but we will address any issues that come to us on Monday.
In the church.
Oh, and the church, we've had First Christian Church. They're opening up there, I guess, Fellowship Hall?
Well, it's their.
Life Center.
Life Center, yeah.
Life Center, from 9 to 3.
9:30 to 3, I believe.
9:30 to 3, and providing, internet access, device access, tutoring for those that need it, lunch. I know with Kathy, I know she's in here. How many did you end up having today so far?
Around 600.
About 600 meals have been requested and will be delivered on Monday, so hopefully that number will go up. Just working as hard as we can under these times.
Okay, so anybody have any questions on that portion before we get into the discussion on the other two?
We have got the confusion out of the way for I mean, I'm getting questions about kids having to sit in front of the computer
Yes, and I
and log
did.
on at a certain time.
I did a call out to all the families, and I also, we put it on our Facebook page, our website. State board requires that we have 6.5 hours of instruction. That does not mean a kid has to be sitting in front of a computer for 6.5 hours. They need to log on, and they don't have to log on at 8 o'clock and stay on till 3, They do need to check every day because they're going to have assignments from all their teachers. It's more of getting their assignments done that are assigned to them. And I know we've talked to our teachers about giving deadlines. If you assign something today, don't expect them, they might not be able to get it done in an hour today. Giving them a deadline of having it done by tomorrow or, the next day. So I think there was some confusion with that, but I think that that's helped that we address that.
And as far as students, they're going to be responsible for grades and
They're-
actual learning and tests and.
They're responsible for
homework.
any assignments, any quizzes, any tests, any projects. It will look a lot different than it did in the spring because, state board did cease grades. So we're starting all over. So, it is really important that they keep up with their assignments. If a teacher sees that a student has not logged on in a day or two, they're going to be calling, saying, what's going on? What can I do to help? So, we're going to be providing those supports.
Okay.
And as far as I've had some questions on the 2-week break. If a student's family was to go somewhere, they could take their computer and access the internet and get on and do their lessons where they're at.
Exactly.
What about teachers?
As long as we're in the virtual world, as long as they've let the principal of the building know, we are expecting them to be on site. But if they have already got something planned or they have an appointment for that day, just let the building principal know because they can still do that from wherever they're at.
So the question from a few of the staff was that they had made plans and they may not be able to fulfill those plans because they thought they were required to report to the school.
Right.
Is that the case, or is it possible for them to do their virtual? Can they do the same thing students do? Can they use their laptop, say in Florida on the beach, and deal with their students the same way as if they were here?
As long as we're full virtual.
Right.
Now, when we go back to either full in person or a hybrid where we have kids coming in, that'll be a little different because we'd have to have a sub.
Right. Okay.
But as long as we're full virtual and they let the principal know, there's no issue there.
Still tentative plans.
Yes.
Since you brought that up, let's talk about something. And I think from my discussions with teachers and you, I think Joanne's been getting the same calls.
Right.
I think we probably made a mistake when we chose a calendar. Because I've never gotten so many calls about something since I've been on the board is this calendar. So I would like, if it's okay, to, when we have our call meeting at the end of the month, is let's revisit this calendar and look at it, because I think we probably need to go back to that other option where we add back fall break and the day before Thanksgiving, or take those back out of the calendar. Because there's a lot of teachers that have travel plans the day before Thanksgiving, and traveling down the interstate, you can't log on and do your work. Others have medical procedures they plan for that fall break. So,
Well, if somebody has a medical procedure, that's a different matter than.
well, but they've planned these out, and it's going to, and two, if it's in person, we're going to have trouble getting, we're going to run into getting substitutes. So I would like to revisit that come next meeting and possibly go back and look at changing this calendar.
And the only problem with that, and I've had the similar calls, and the point I've made is that decision's already been made. If we keep going back on all these decisions, we're going to throw everything in chaos because they've had to make plans. And the same thing is, okay, if we tell somebody that they can or they can't, or we're going to revisit it next month, are they going to be able to keep the plans they've had? There's nothing convenient about this whole year. I mean, this is a mess.
But when I think, just to be honest, I honestly think we made a mistake, and no one's perfect. I think we need to revisit it. I think we need to own it And we need to look at this again, the calendar.
I don't think we made a mistake, but I'm not, I mean, I'm one vote, but
Well, if we're gonna do that, I mean, we'll be in school, everybody will see how everything works, and, we can look at it. I don't have problems looking at it.
I don't have a problem looking at it.
I would
think-
at least like to
I
add
think
it to
it's
the agenda
dangerous,
of
though,
each
for us
called
to-
meeting.
I think it's dangerous for us to make a decision that we made last week, which wasn't easy.
Then back up on it.
And then these people have all made plans, and all the teachers in the schools have made plans. And the reason we took that away was because we needed the days. And then we're gonna go back and make that changed again. Edna?
We will do what the board wants, of course, but please keep in mind, these changes have to go before the state, be approved to the state. If you change the calendar again, we have to resend it to the state. We have to redo all of the grading periods. We have to redo all of the reporting periods, and all of that has to go through the state again.
Right.
So it's not just,
Well, that was my
it's not
point.
just easy to.
It's not just a local decision.
No.
I realize that. But,
Well, there's a lot of people who are gonna be inconvenienced by this whole thing. Virtual has inconvenienced almost everybody, but, I mean, I've gotten similar calls, and my point is, you know, there's a point at which we just have to make a decision, and we have to place more importance on the kids. Angie?
I was just thinking, could we not just make the decision that be a virtual week, even if we are back in person, like to hopefully accommodate some of those issues? You know, and teachers could work that to make that accommodation. You know, they still may have some things they have to do, but, you know, if they know that now and they're planning for that up front, that might be an option.
Well, and that was my question to Dr. Simcox.
Even if we were in person, make that a virtual week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with that, but I don't expect to be in person till that first of the year, but I really don't. I mean, because it
Does
would
that
be
help
odd.
answer a question? I mean, what they've said? I mean, we're talking about some people who are gonna be on vacation that week, and a lot of people won't. But some people who are gonna be inconvenienced, but virtual learning is gonna inconvenience everybody, and I think, you know, that Angie's comment is what I was asking Dr. Simcox. Could people still do virtual? Kids can, so it doesn't interrupt any kid. But my question was
The teachers.
regarding the staff, that you can still make arrangements.
Yes.
So if a staff member had something planned, they could take their computer and do it.
The
Virtual.
only difference in what Angie was saying is, let's say, even though we all suspect that may not be the case, that we come back in person between now and October. She's saying, could we say that even if we happen to be in person, that for that week, it will be virtual for everybody?
Yeah.
That way, you
Make
don't
it a
have to change the
virtual
calendar.
Just make it
We're just
virtual.
saying, the week of fall break will be virtual, whether we're virtual or in person, that week will be virtual. I think that's what you were suggesting.
Yeah.
Does that help some, Mike?
Would
But
that
that would
be,
require board act, that you also have to make that
Right.
determination as well.
would that mess with the calendar in the state?
No.
No?
No, because we
Could
we
we still
have to
be-
have so
Well,
many
it's set.
instructional days, and that would count as an
Instructional
instructional
day.
day.
And we
Okay.
would be providing instruction, so it would.
what
count
about
as
the day
instruction.
before Thanksgiving?
We could do the same. If the board wanted us to do that.
It's still gonna require that teacher to check that day.
Yes.
At some point. I don't
Yeah.
guess it, not at 8 o'clock in the morning, but
No.
at some point.
But
Or-
my point to these folks is, everything's inconvenient this year. And I mean, we didn't have an easy decision last week. I mean, that was not easy.
Yeah.
But
and-
everything's inconvenient this year. So the fact that some people feel inconvenienced because they want to take a vacation, I'm more concerned with the people who are inconvenienced because their kids are home or wherever trying to get on a computer, or having to go to a lab or to the church.
I know if you recall, whenever we looked at those two calendars, we sort of all looked at each other for a while, because we just didn't know which way to go.
Well, I don't think I wouldn't say that for my decision. I knew which way to go based on the discussion.
Was there a survey to the teachers? Didn't the teachers take a survey of which one of those calendars they wanted?
But they took a survey on what they would want taken away if we had to take days away. As far as if we took Martin Luther King away, we took Veterans Day, we took fall break.
How many teachers was okay with taking fall break away?
Chase, how many?
83.
83.
Out
Out
of-
of,
Total of 320 responses. That's 26.7%.
So 70.
It was the smallest percent.
74% of the teachers wanted the other calendar that we chose.
We knew that last week when we made the decision.
I didn't.
We talked about it.
Well, I just didn't hear it.
because that was the smallest one to take away, but we did have people that were.
Well, I mean, and I'm not, it's a decision for the entire board to make, but, you know, my feeling is there's a lot of people inconvenienced this year. And we made a decision last week, and I don't think we can make decisions and then, because we get a lot of feedback, go back and change those decisions. When I make a decision, you know, I make it based on the information we get and what, you know, these folks tell us, so.
Well, the way I see it, you know, none of us are perfect, and I think we chose the wrong decision. And if you made a mistake, you need to own it. And if you can fix it, you can. If we can't, we can't. But let's at least look at it when we have this call meeting.
Well, one of the things I'd like is for the staff here to make sure that you bring these things back up to us when we have this discussion, because we've just heard it again, and I don't think we made a mistake, but if the board wants to discuss it, I mean, that's up to the board.
like I said, we can look at it, but as she said, we can't change it. We might make it virtual if we're
Yeah, there's
back in
alternatives
school,
we
you
can
know,
have.
so. We might be able to, we can fix it, but we can't change it.
Yeah, we can change it. We just have to go to the state and send it back in the state and get it approved again.
Yeah.
I think we need to, when we make decisions though for the future, I think we need to make those decisions, and like I say, I don't think we made a mistake or to correct a mistake. It was a tough decision last week. Nothing we made a decision on, or actually this past year, nothing we've made a decision on has been an easy decision, but. Okay, so is the preference of the board then to put it on the agenda for the next?
The call meeting.
Okay. Now, when is that called meeting? Because they're going to need some time.
We're going to talk about that, unless y'all want to go ahead and set a
Just
date.
a minute. No, let's go on to the discussion of athletics
Okay.
and liability issues.
Okay.
So the next item that we're in the process of discussion, and we needed that whole discussion to come back to athletics to kind of focus us, is to look at the liability issues in sports due to COVID-19.
Yes, and I shared with y'all yesterday not only the new TSSAA guidelines on returning, but also the Northeast Tennessee school systems, which is Morristown up, that's Northeast Tennessee for us. And our main discussion really is about contact sports, which for us in the fall is football. It's football and soccer, we don't have soccer. A lot of these regulations, you know, volleyball and golf are not contact, they're non-contact. So a lot of these are more dealing with contact sports, so that's going to be, I guess, sort of the realm of our discussion tonight. But I am going to turn it over to Dr. Long. We have met extensively, not only with directors and ADs in our Northeast region, but Stephen and Coach Atwood and myself have met numerous times, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Long.
Thank you, Dr. Simcox. I'm going to go over the highlights of the things that we've discussed when we've been planning, and if at any point you have a question, just feel free to speak up. Football practice has resumed. It is by the TSSAA guidelines and the recommendations set forth by them and the announcement by the governor and so forth. We are following those guidelines, but they are full contact, making preparations to hopefully play. Following all the guidelines for screening and so forth. As you know, we did have something of an outbreak on the team, but I'm pleased to report that all of our players and coaches, for the vast majority of them have recovered. The rest of them are well on their way. We may have a couple that still haven't returned to participation yet, and that's only due to the time limits set forth by the CDC. It's not because they're doing poorly. So we've talked extensively about that. We've had a great deal of our discussion has been around, okay, if we are able to play the games, how do we do that? How do we execute a game? So when you're talking about our stadium, you want to talk about social distancing and capacity. So we went up there, Coach Atwood and myself, we measured the visitors' bleachers. We measured the home bleachers. We calculated the number of cars that can sit around and view from their vehicle around the top of the hill. We plan to bring 5 sets of aluminum bleachers down from the baseball and softball field and add those to the visitors' side. We plan to set up chairs in the corner between the bathrooms and the visitors' side. In that corner, we plan to set up chairs for the band so that they will have a designated area unique to them. We plan to do all of that, and when we do that, our social distance capacity for the stadium was more than we thought it would be. It's 1,250 people. That's figuring at 4 people per car and with social distance in those bleachers. With concessions, we plan to use both the existing concession stands and set up a temporary one on the visitor side to limit lines. And we also plan to just sell quick prepackaged items or items that can be packaged in advance, like bags of popcorn, so that people walk up, lay down their money, grab it, and go. We won't be doing a lot of our food preparation type things, nachos with chili and that sort of thing. It's going to be quick items at concessions. So that's our plan for how to play the game. Talking about gates and tickets. Tickets would be pre-sold. We would set up tables in our main entrance, but more in front of the Presbyterian Church so that people can drive up. We will set the dates. We will widely advertise them. It'll be a period of hours on certain days of the week. They will come up and pre-purchase their tickets there at a table, and then they will be able to turn left down by the church and not have to come onto the premises. Similar to that, on game night, let me back up. So, and we will send an allotment of, we're thinking 50 to the visitors. Or 100, it was 150. 150 to the visitors. And they will be responsible for bringing us the money when they come to the game. But we're going to ask them to bring any unsold tickets and to let us know by Thursday morning how many of those they have. We will sell some tickets at the vocational school gate. Now, per the requirements, every person coming into the game has to answer the screening questions, has to have their temperature taken, and they have to wear a mask. So, for that reason, the track gate will not be open. And the reason is at the main gate and the vocational school gate, there is a method of egress if they, to put it bluntly, fail their screening. If they have a temperature or don't have a mask or something like that, then in both of those places there's a way that they can go on and exit without coming onto the property. There is not such a way on the track gate. So we would set that up and make it to where they could come on in or leave if they don't pass the screen. And so we would sell any unsold tickets only at the vocational gate, and we would advertise that widely. The front gate will be pre-sold tickets only, because we don't want a log jam at the gate, and we don't want a log jam at the concession stand. So that's our plan for how we would execute game day, so to speak, as far as tickets, crowd, and that sort of thing. We would have an SRO at each of those gates to discourage any confrontation, because this could be, no teacher or employee wants to say, sorry, you can't come in. But that will be their job if they don't meet the criteria for the screening or having a mask. I'll pause. Does anyone have any questions about anything I've said so far? Regarding money, and finances, football is an expensive sport. It takes a lot, it takes a lot to, what's a new helmet cost, Coach Curley?
About $425.
About $425 for a new helmet, and then every year they have to recondition the equipment in order to continue using it. And it's like kind of like school buses. There's a limit as to how many years you can use that equipment. And we are not asking for money for that. We're in good shape on equipment, but I just said that football, more than any other sport, has a huge expense in the way of equipment and transportation. They are in the black, but they don't have the money to operate for the whole season. And it will depend on, most of their money comes from gate revenue. They do a good job fundraising and do everything they can, but most of their money comes from gate revenue. So it will depend on if we're able to play the games, whether they have money to keep moving forward. I maintain a relatively small budget every year for athletics, but it is traditionally strictly for what we call non-revenue sports, sports that don't draw a crowd, frankly. Softball, volleyball, baseball, tennis, track, golf, and cheerleading is what I use that smaller budget just to keep those programs afloat. Some of those events, we love them and we support them fully, but just being honest, they don't draw enough of a gate to pay the officials for the contest. So we have to subsidize those. We feel that football is going to be hit by the limitation on crowd size. I know we're not talking about basketball right now, but we feel that basketball is going to be devastated by the limitations on crowd size because our gym capacity is not what you would think it is, and it's indoors. So it'll be even more strict than football. So one of the issues that we discussed was to request for this year only a similar budget to the one I just described that would operate the same way, possibly or maybe around $30,000 that I would oversee for football and boys and girls basketball that would be allocated to them on an as-needed basis. It would flow through me, to Tina, to Karen, their bookkeeper, or who's also the middle school book. It could possibly be needed for middle school football or basketball as well. And then that way, if they wind up needing money, you know, if they say we're going to have trouble getting to Chucky Doke this week because we just don't have the money, or we're going to have trouble playing Unicoi at home this week because we can't pay the officials, obviously we don't want to be in that situation. So that is my update on the state of athletics. We feel as though, like I said, they did have an outbreak. We feel like with the help of Wendy Henley, I would be remiss if I didn't mention her, and the health department, and then the diligence on the part of our coaching staff. We feel like we weathered that storm very well. And we do feel like we can move forward with the season with the board's permission.
And one thing I'd like to add that we talked about today is live streaming the events. And actually, we talked with a vendor today that does that, and had Chase involved. I feel like we can do that and be able to also live stream the games, football and basketball.
Thank you for reminding me of that. That's through the National Federation of High Schools. That's not a fly-by-night idea or anything that we had. We spoke to Elizabeth on the phone today. They're doing it. It's a very high-tech camera. It only takes one camera. It's automated. It follows the action on its own. We watched a sample video from a game. It was very high quality. You can patch in audio to it so that they would be getting the play-by-play as well. And that's another possibility for revenue if we were to be able to install that.
And I did get with him today, Dr. Simcox, and he's sending me something first thing in the morning.
Good. Thank you.
So I'll send it to Chase.
Yeah, send it to Chase.
I'll be happy to answer any questions as best I can.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's talking about the funding, where we just general fund and just set it aside for them.
Your enforcement's probably gonna be difficult if graduation's any indication.
Yes, sir. In talking with other athletic directors, and Coach Atwood's done that more than I have, to be frank, most people are saying we can control capacity. We're not really, once they do get in, we're not really the 6 feet apart police. And furthermore, if they came in the car together, you know, you could have a family of 8 come in a Suburban, and they can sit shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, that, in fact, we would want them to, because that frees up more space for everyone else. So, yes, enforcement would be a challenge.
So are you still good for like volleyball?
Yes.
Yes, sir. All of these guidelines right now are for contact sports, and that's specifically football and soccer, which of course we don't
We
have.
don't have some. You're talking about enforcement, you know, that, even though the, you know, mayors say that there's a mandate, you know, it's not law, it's just them
Right.
saying it, so there's not a whole lot we can do about it, other than just suggest it.
And the one other thing I wanted to add is we're kind of very fortunate because the way that our schedule runs, we're gonna be on the road the first 2 games. And as everybody knows, this stuff changes daily. And how you're gonna run things are gonna change daily, and it's different for every venue. We're probably one of the only venues that has the 3 drive-in gates that we're gonna have to check temperatures while they come through. And maybe have 50 people walk in, where everybody else has everybody walk in. But with us having 2 away games, I think that gives us really good time for us to look at what these other teams are doing, or other schools, and them letting me know, you know, hey, this is what we would change if we're gonna change something for our next home game. So we're really fortunate that we do have 2 away games right off the bat. I think that'll help us.
That's a good point. And it's been, sometimes the drive-in gates are a blessing and a curse, but this is a situation where the drive-in gates really work to our advantage. We're gonna have vinyl banners, a vinyl sign printed up with the screening questions, so that our employees don't have to rattle off those questions or shove them in their face. They can point to them and say, answer those questions while they, no touch, take their temperature, and then if they've got masks, they can come in.
And having the 2 exits where we can check temperatures before they get to the side roads is, I mean, that's really good too. And there's not many other places that have drive-in gates that's gonna happen. You know, if they fail their screening, they're gonna have to go on campus anyway and come back off. With us, we can just send them down the side road, and if somebody comes through the main gate and they're wanting to buy a ticket, it's easy to send them right down the side street and up the hill to go to the vocational gate.
What kind of issues do you think you'll have with travel, other teams? Do you think you're gonna find a lot of canceled games?
Well, if it hits, I mean, if they get some COVID cases, that's what we're afraid of. And that's what everybody's afraid of. But as far as how they're gonna handle that, the away team, if they're coming on the bus, then they're responsible for taking their temperature before they get on. And then when they come through the gate, you know, we don't have to take it. You know, their coach is responsible. Don will be responsible when we go on these first road trips, and he takes every temperature. And really, you can't write it down and give it to the other team because that's a violation, I think.
That's a HIPAA violation.
But, you know, if each coach will do that and take care of that part. Now, and I think we're allowing some of the kids, if their parents don't feel comfortable with them being on the bus, but they want to go to the game, and we don't like it, I know as a coach, I want my guys with me on the way down. Now, on the way home's a little different, but on the way down, I'd like to have them. But if a parent says, well, you know, he's not going to play, he's got to ride the bus down, and they take him, then they'll have to be screened just like any other patron coming in. And that's the way we'll deal with it here too.
But you will allow them to play.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Sound like y'all made a lot of plans. Sounds good.
We've met numerous times on this.
And it's over the east now. Now south has canceled, north is canceled.
They're back on.
Is north back on? Okay. But I talked to the AD from east, and they're ready to play.
And that'll be our
unless something happens.
That's our first
Uh,
game.
Yes.
The
21st.
only
21st.
good thing for us is that it hit us early, and I think that we're kind of through it. You know, we may get another case, but a lot of these other teams, you know, I'm just afraid it's gonna hit them, that it may cancel a game or two.
It'll
But
be
right
week-
now, East is good.
It'll be week to week.
Right.
If we're able to play and we're able to play our home games and we approach that 1,250 capacity, the football team will do pretty well financially. But if we lose games, or if we don't even get close to that 1,250 capacity, which is fine if people are afraid to come, we've talked about it. We think, just based on what we hear in the community, we think people are anxious to come. We'll see, time will tell, but.
Coach Carroll?
Yes, sir.
Main question I have, you think we can play football and the kids be safe?
I do. We just gotta be more careful. I tell the players that we just gotta have a limited capacity of the people we hang around ourselves. I mean, we can't go hang around 5 different friends and those 5 go hang around 25 more people. And then, we just talk, we just gonna have to limit our friends with our own group of people and stay around our immediate family. And we're gonna have to do some precautions ourselves. We just can't do what we normally do.
Hey, Mr. Long, if you, and I'm like you, my biggest concern really was not the COVID.
No.
My biggest concern was with our kids not being taught how to tackle, putting their head down and getting hurt because they ain't had the time.
Right.
But I will say this, and I watched 20 minutes of practice before I came down here, just sitting on the hill. The things they were going over were bags, and they were doing tackling drills, keeping their head up, things like that. So I know they're getting taught,
Okay.
how to tackle and how to be safe. Because I had the same concern.
Because we ain't had the time.
No,
There's a lot of
no.
time. We had
Our
conditions.
time in spring, I know.
Right. Okay. I mean, I've got complete confidence in you guys, so, I'm ready to play football.
Me too.
Is there anything we need to do with this discussion? I mean, we wanted to talk about it, but is there anything we need to do?
On the budget, the money.
I guess we're asking,
For money.
can we play football?
Yeah.
And then we're also asking is, would you all be willing to make a fallback fund that wouldn't just go into their accounts, but that we would control here, that they could make requests for as needed? And anything unused at the end of the year would go back into the fund it originated from.
Have we got a line item or anything, we can drop that in?
Actually, Dr. Long has a current line item, and that's where he pays for the sports that he's mentioning, tennis, golf,
The non-revenue.
volleyball, the non-revenue
But,
ones.
I
So
mean-
we currently have a line,
Would-
and he's been doing that for years. It just didn't include basketball and football.
Can we pull reserves into it?
Yes, you actually have, would y'all mind if I go ahead and?
It could be the same fund, but I could keep it on a separate spreadsheet and treat it as 2 separate.
Right, my other question was making sure the auditor understands all
Well,
this.
here's probably what you would need to do. You have a sheet in front of you that I'll go over when we get to the budget. But you have reserves and you have undesignated funds.
Yes.
And what you would need to do is you would make the decision to move undesignated funds into Dr. Long's current line item for the non-revenue sports.
Okay.
It's undesignated?
Yes.
How much were you talking?
30,000.
30?
And I think that's more than enough, but rather than have to come back and ask you again, I would rather just go for a fairly substantial number, and then if it's unused, we'll put it back. The other fund, if it's unused, just so you know
It
how it
just
works,
sits
because
there.
you all ought to know, if it's unused, I divide it out at the end of the year among the teams, based on how much they have in their account, or how much they usually have to expend. This 30,000, whatever was unused, would go back into Tina's hands to put
Go
back
back into
whatever needs to go.
undesignated.
Yes.
Do we need to add all that language in that motion?
I don't think we can do a motion yet, can we? Wouldn't we have to put this on our agenda next
Can
month?
we do that at the
Can we
call
Can we do that
meeting?
at the
That
special
probably has
call
to go on
meeting?
an agenda
Yeah.
later.
We would have to do
This is
an
not a call meeting,
amendment,
I didn't
and
know.
you would approve the amendment.
This is our regular meeting.
Right.
But if it's not on the agenda and we're making a motion, I think we have to do that as
How
a
soon would you need to know?
notice.
Can we do that next regular meeting, or?
Put that on.
Yes. Yeah, we don't. we
You'd
don't
be
need-
okay by then, right?
We don't need it within the next month.
Okay, sorry.
We can add that on there.
So Tina, you're gonna make sure that we're in good straits with auditors.
Yes.
amount?
And
No, I
we'll do
do.
an amendment, and the board would approve the amendment.
I do think it would be good to be in the minutes that you all vote that we can proceed with the season, if that's what's on the, is that?
Well, we had
Oh, yeah,
what's on the
discussion.
agenda such that you.
It's
can
not
vote
really a
on that?
motion, it's just discussion. I think we just wanted to talk about it and make sure. I mean, if anybody,
Because really, it was on our reopening plan.
Right.
That you all did approve.
Right.
But you all just wanted us to discuss it more
Okay.
to make sure.
we just wanted
that-
more information. Make sure, we wanted your plan that you just talked about, which sounds like you guys put a lot of effort in it.
So we have your blessing to play?
Everybody
Yes.
good with
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
Come on.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
next item is the same thing, a discussion on before and after school care program.
I'm going to turn this over to Lori. We've had similar discussions over the past week with childcare as well on how we can incorporate this and make this work, not only for our employees, but also for the public. So those discussions haven't been as simple and easy as football, I will be honest. There's a lot of, I guess, legalities to this, so I'm going to turn this over to Lori, who's going to share information.
You had to take your muffle off.
I'm gonna turn it over to you in about 5
Take
minutes.
that mud off that bulldog, right?
I believe you can't hear me. Okay, I wrote it all down, so I'm going to read it to you, and then if you have questions, we'll talk about it, okay? And I'll try not to read it too fast. I want to start by telling you that we've worked really hard and had many discussions about childcare in our schools. First and foremost, we understand that this is a decision that you all have to make, and we're willing to do everything we can to make it happen if that's possible. We sent out a survey to our Johnson County staff, asking them how many would need to bring their students with them in order to return to work. With the responses returned, we currently have 65 elementary students, 15 middle school students, and 20 high school students, for a total of 100 students located throughout our schools that would come to work with their parents. If we decide to have childcare during virtual classes only, we have the staff for the following: 18 students at Doe, 18 students at Laurel, 27 at Mountain City, and 54 at Rome Creek. Those numbers do not include the 65 elementary students of our staff. Once you take the number of staff students, you would have spaces for 52 students in the 4 elementaries. Something to take into consideration: the assistants' work schedules would have to be altered in order to cover the childcare times from 6:30 to 6. So half the staff would work 6:30 to 2, and half the staff would work 10:30 to 6. Parents would need to have a backup plan in case that might have to go in effect with the first hour of childcare, because if a kid shows symptoms, we're going to have to shut down everything, and they're going to have to pick up the kids, and it would be closed. So it's going to have a backup plan within hours. It could be days. It could be, we may not even have to, but that's something that they would have to take into consideration. This might not be the perfect plan to bring your kid, because we may be calling you saying pick your kid up because we have a child that has COVID symptoms. And that would also quarantine our staff, and those students and the classrooms would have to be clean before we could have other students come back in. A bigger thing to take into consideration is that this would only work during full virtual. If we go into a hybrid model, for example, if we go back to where it's 25% of the students a day, then those assistants that we were going to work in childcare would actually have to work in their normal capacity job. They would have to go back to working with the teachers, working with the special needs of teachers. I mean, they would have to go back to their job. So virtual, this would only work for the 2 weeks of full virtual. I'm done.
You said that with the students coming back with the parents, that would be in their room
With the staff,
with the staff. Would that counts as a student in childcare?
that would count in our numbers. Like, you want to talk now?
Okay.
I'll let him.
Try. there are some assistants and employees, like there might be some teachers that want their children to stay in their classroom.
Right.
But we have some assistants and custodians and people like that, they don't have a designated space.
Right.
So the whole reason that we're out right now is to try to keep people as far away from one another as possible, and teachers have to stay in their room. They shouldn't be going to other teachers' rooms, you know, like we're trying to keep everybody kind of confined to their area. The custodians and assistants and those folks, they don't have just a place that they can take their kid and that their child can stay with them all day. So we're gonna have to offer some sort of daycare for those employees anyway, using some of our assistants. That's why we're not really gonna know exactly how many students that we can serve in the community until we know exactly, till the employees come back and they start bringing their kids, like, then that's gonna determine how many spaces we can open up to community childcare. But, like Lori was saying, our biggest concern is the fact that, you know, and it's a concern even for our employees, like, in the groups that we have, you know, the 9 kids with the 1 adult. If one kid shows symptoms, that shuts everybody down, and so then that's gonna mean that, you know, that group of kids and that employee has to go home, that these are employees' kids, so all those faculty members are gonna have to go home and quarantine with that child because they don't have childcare, they don't have anybody else that can keep their child. So we're already concerned about that, that again, we'll do whatever you want us to do, we can make it work. It's just that we don't know how long that this is gonna work, you know, before we have to close. And so parents really need to consider the fact that if they have any other alternative right now, it might be more stable than doing childcare with us.
Well, that's part of the problem, the reason we brought it up, because there is none.
No,
There's not none, not any, on film. Not any in Johnson County.
Right. But, you know, we won't have a choice if we have a student that comes in that's showing symptoms. I mean, Wendy can tell you, we have no choice but to quarantine everybody. I mean, that's from the health department, we have to follow their guidelines along with the CDC guidelines.
What about, okay, if you have, let's say you've got a teacher and they're gonna bring their child. That child sick,
They'll
then
have,
what's gonna happen? Is she gonna end up being, they're gonna end up both of them being quarantined,
They'll
or if
have
she's
to
got
be.
5 or whatever?
they'll have to be.
Well, we're recommending that if they're showing symptoms, not to even come at first.
Right.
Okay.
Because that way they're not potentially, infecting someone else, and we're having to do a bunch of contact tracing. So that could happen potentially that morning before anybody even gets there, which would be kind of good, because then they've not caused us to have to put out more.
Right.
But if they start developing symptoms once they get there, then you still have to go ahead and send them home on the quarantine until they get tested, and then you have criteria based on that.
Wendy, am I correct in thinking though that like if it was a student that has been at our child care and they develop symptoms before they get to school that day, the kids that were with them previously we would have to notify their families and they would have to be quarantined.
If they were around them within 48 hours.
Then 48.
We're
Now,
back
you
to
say
what we,
just shows symptoms, so if there's like a little 24-hour bug that goes around and they have a fever, then we're gonna assume it's COVID and,
tested.
huh?
They would be recommended for testing at that point.
And then they're quarantined for 14 days.
The
Regardless,
contacts or the person.
all the above.
Okay, it gets complicated on that.
It is very,
very
confusing.
Okay, the individual that's
Yeah.
showing symptoms,
Yeah,
if they have to go out regardless, get
Okay.
tested. If they test negative, we have to ask a lot of questions, like were they in contact with someone that was positive? If they were, they have to quarantine depending on what their test showed. If they're positive, they're automatically on a 10-day isolation because they become a case. But if they test negative, but they're symptomatic,
they still have to do the isolation because there could be some false negatives. And they said if they're showing symptoms, they would rather us go ahead and do isolation. Okay, on the contact piece, I actually asked this question today, was that we don't have to let the other kids go out until we find out if that person was positive.
Okay.
Okay, but the second part of that is if they are a household contact, which might be a sibling, they're kind of getting re-exposed daily when that kid comes home and back and forth, so we recommend the siblings, stay out till we get confirmed results. Because household contacts are a total separate issue because they are continuously coming back into that environment daily, and while you're awaiting results, if that person winds up being positive, then you've sent them siblings back into the classroom or childcare, and they could have potentially been asymptomatic and spreading the COVID to that class or the childcare room. But then if it comes back positive, everybody's a contact to the case.
So if we opened up daycare, the likelihood of having these scenarios is very real. And if I'm a parent, it may be convenient. Well, I did the kids country, so I know that the days that they weren't open threw me into a state because I didn't know what to do because I depended on kids country. So if I'm a parent, right now we've got 50 people wanting daycare to provide. But if I'm a parent and I'm dependent on that daycare with this iffy situation, I don't know that I'd like to provide them something, but I don't know that providing them something is helping if we're going to yank it out from under them and then all of a sudden they're thrown into a lurch again.
No. And then what's going to happen if we go back and we start with a hybrid model, then that's a whole nother issue. They're going to have to figure out what to do on the days that their child's not in school.
Because you're going to change.
Yeah, we can't provide it if we're on.
I feel like it's going to make it worse just initially until we figure out things because, like Mike was saying, if while we're awaiting that positive case, if that person does end up being positive and all those other kids are on an automatic 14-day quarantine to see if their symptoms, just for example, say one of them become positive, they've already exposed their family. And then those families are going to be out of work if they're not critical infrastructure. So you've just got a domino effect of them contaminating another person, possibly.
This is a decision we have to
It
say
makes
yes or
it
no
tough,
about.
'cause really, I was looking at the numbers, we didn't have any kid or school-age kids report positive
Right,
today.
not today.
But yesterday they were 3.
There was 3.
And then 2 days ago, 3 days ago, there's not any. So it's only had really one high day. So,
But
I don't know.
To really know, we need to know how many children that staff's bring, right?
So far, 100.
Staff are a different issue though, aren't they?
No.
Than the non-staff children coming to kids country?
Well, our issue is the staff that are bringing those that, like, for example, our custodians, we don't have a space for those kids to go, and they can't follow them around. Our assistants that don't have a specific room, so we're going to have a room set up for some of those.
So we're saying maybe not have care at all to where they can bring them?
Well, no, we want them to be able to bring them, but our issue right now is, if we have child care, you've heard the concerns. If we don't have child care, then the teachers are going to have to keep their children in their rooms with them at all times, not roaming around the hallways, not going to shoot ball. Assistants and custodial staff, I don't know where they can keep their kids. It is an issue that we found out today when we were talking through this. We don't know where they can keep those kids because they don't have a specified room.
I think either way, we're going to have to use our assistants to do some sort of childcare in the buildings for our employee staff, especially those that don't have a designated area. So, but again, it is worrisome even having those kids together and exposing one another that you know, we potentially could have several employees out of work if something, if, you know, if a child was symptomatic, so.
You've got what, the school bus garage out of work now?
Yes, we do.
First one comes back tomorrow.
So what are you saying to us? I mean, just,
We're just
I-
telling you that we've
the
laid
total-
out all this, and we will do anything you want us to do. We will.
well, I
work
know
it out.
that, I know
Here's what
that.
I
But I think
they're
we're looking
trying
for
to
more
say.
guidance.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to say, we better hold off.
But,
During
yeah,
this first period,
yeah.
from 17th through the 28th, let's just go ahead and have your child care for our employees. And then let's look and see, and let's be hopeful that come next month, we're on some kind of back-end school. Either, whether it be a hybrid. I
But
don't
you
see
can't
how
pro-
we can come
You
back.
can't provide it for the hybrid.
Yeah, I
There's no
don't see
way.
how we can come back 100%. Do you?
I don't see us
Right now.
coming back 100% right now. I mean, if anything, it'll be a hybrid.
And then I was thinking about this too, that 25-25. I don't know how that would really work out either, because you're gonna have 25% of the kids in there, and we're gonna have a rush job clean, 25% more, so it's almost like having half of them there anyway.
I mean, I've been on the phone with the health department every day for the last week, and more so questions. We've had WebExes every day. And they just said, you know, I mean, they want to help us, but there's just no black and white. I mean, we've got so many scenarios that, you know, we have, when we do come back to school, we have one isolation room. Well, we can't put 40 kids in there really at the same time. And I mean, it's just a lot to think about when we go, because potentially the entire classroom could be shut down depending if the person winds up being positive or negative. So, I mean, we just don't know till we actually have the situation and can contact trace and know where to go from there.
So if we say no childcare, then what do you have left? Is what you're saying is that the teachers can bring their children to their classroom?
And
What-
we would have to have, you know, an area for employees that don't have like a designated area that they can keep their children with them.
Okay.
What do we have in the school system, in our schools, that's gonna be
That's-
vacant for that? What,
That's what the survey, there were
Yeah.
100 kids coming with their parents.
but where can they be? Because you're gonna have teachers in their classrooms. What other places do you have in the schools that these children can be kept? Do you have the
vacant
space?
So like the kids' country room, the gym.
The library,
Library.
cafeteria.
Yeah, those spaces.
So just keep.
You know, some, like Rome Creek has some empty classrooms. Mountain City does not.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. that.
Doe does not have any empty classrooms. Laurel does. You know, the Hill does not have any empty classrooms. It would be, you know, just those common area spaces.
So, let me ask the board, can we do this in a couple of segments? So, can we do it first on childcare for non-school people? Are we saying that, based on what they're saying, let's make sure so that we, you know,
Well-
whatever we decide, we gotta decide and not change it because people are gonna be dependent on us.
Well, no, we're gonna relook at everything in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, but, I mean, childcare though, we are, but in childcare, what they're saying is you can't do it with even, I mean, it's hard in the virtual, but you're saying that you can't do it with these partial plans.
There's no way to do it with hybrid because the employees that would be doing childcare will have to start back doing their
Right.
regular duties.
So unless we go back, I guess, could we say that unless we go back to full school, we wouldn't have childcare for non-employees?
I think that's a valid statement, yeah.
Kevin?
I mean, that's no choice.
I don't know, we have a choice. So there's your direction from the board on that. Now, what do we decide? I mean, is there a decision for us or is it a decision that you need to make on the staff? I mean, that's to you, isn't it?
I think before you had said that you would allow staff to bring their kids to work
Okay.
because if they don't, then they're gonna have to do the FCCRA. And then we're gonna be without employees to educate our kids.
Okay, so we all agree to that?
Yeah, We did
Okay,
that
so
before.
Yeah.
there's your answer.
And then you're still gonna try and supply some type of childcare for assistants, janitors?
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Okay,
We'll have to on that.
Well, and we'll have to use some of our employees to be able to do that.
okay.
So
And
does
this is
that give
gonna
you the
start
direction you needed?
Yes.
Joanne?
This is gonna start Monday,
Mhm.
okay? And these children, of course, they'll be provided lunch. I mean, I'm sure they've signed up for the lunch program and,
Well, we have forms on some of the teachers' ones, and then if they haven't, then they will just get with that. We're going to be working out of our 4 elementary schools, so
Okay.
they will just get with the elementary school.
Okay.
We've had some high school, middle school teachers that have submitted the form.
yeah,
Those meals will probably be delivered by bus route out of Mountain City to the Hill.
okay, okay.
Okay.
While we're talking about that, Herbie, would it benefit us to have a couple 15-passenger vans instead of running a bus?
There's a lot of instances where we've used the minivans that we have to run the meals.
What about the 15-passenger? Every county in the state of Tennessee uses a 15-passenger van, except us.
Yeah, we do use the minivans. Would it hurt to have a couple more? Be mighty handy.
Yes, it would.
Like I suggest we look at it. I hate to see a bus run up and down Hollering.
It would be very handy. And we have started utilizing our vans more, for
So do you
those
want to add
reasons.
that to another one, to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it seemed like it'd be a whole lot cheaper and easier.
Yeah.
So add that to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
September
Wouldn't wear the
meeting.
buses out either.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
paying $100,000 for a bus, or we pay $10,000 for a van.
Right.
Add that to the September meeting.
Please.
Yes, please. All right, so any other discussion? Did we give you what you needed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much.
Y'all have done a lot of work on all these things, and I know we all really appreciate everything you've done. This has been a very tough.
I would say nothing would make us happier than to be able to do this.
Sure.
That we don't want to cause more of a problem for parents than.
Well, like I say, as a parent, having experienced that, I want some kind of concrete plan. I don't want you to one day say yes and the next day say no when I've got to go to work.
Yes.
And I don't have any place for my kids. I've been there.
Right.
Okay. Is there anything else that the board wants to bring up as far as school plans or questions you got? All right, budget update. Tina.
Okay, you have a couple sheets in front of you. One is fund balance information, and one is the budget reserve. And first, we'll take a look at the fund balance information. The June 30th, 2019 fund balance was $3,196,235.45. The June 30, 2020 fund balance was $4,009,443.76. That was a $113,208.31 increase in the fund balance. Something we have to remember with this $813,000 increase was that $208,600 was the sale of the CTE house. So there was truly a $604,608.31 increase. We usually average somewhere between a $300,000 to a $500,000 carryover to the fund balance. One of the things that did make a difference is we did pay the salaries for our employees, but there were some expenses like, say, water bill decreased, electricity decreased, the diesel. Substitute teachers, and no staff development, so that made up the difference in the larger amount that we were able to carry over. So if you see, we currently have reserves of $1,562,319.10. Undesignated fund balance as of July 1 was $2,447,124.66. But if you'll remember, we used $76,338 of our fund balance, or our carryover funds, to balance the budget, which left us with $2,370,786.66 of the undesignated fund balance. And then our GASB 45, we have $1,087,317.35. Then if you look at the budget reserves, We have 1,105,000 restricted for education. Dr. Simcox did increase roof replacements and textbooks in that section. Then in technology, the E-rate is just funds that are carried over from year to year, and so we have to continue to carry those excess funds over. But she also increased the tech plan. I think that we currently had 150,000 in the tech plan, and she increased that to 200,000. The vocational funds, those are funds that carry over year to year. That includes the sale of the house and any funds that they have had in the past. And then also you'll see there the GASB 45. What we were talking about earlier with the funds for possibly the revenue sports that don't normally get that, we could move those from the undesignated fund balance. And we are required to carry a certain amount of undesignated fund balance, but we go beyond what we're required to carry. So, any questions on reserves, fund balance, budget? The budget has been sent to the state, but we still have not received approval, so we cannot do amendments or any of the regular budget items until the state has approved the budget, but we don't currently see any problems with it.
How's sales tax revenue?
It actually, I haven't pulled it for July, but it actually had increased the last couple of months. A lot of people have continued to shop in the county. And with the restaurants, they were still doing pickup. So our sales tax revenue was not really hit with the COVID. We actually had some increase because I think people were more likely to just go here and pick up their groceries than to go into other counties. And
Any questions for Tina?
Okay, on our reserves, now is that the one that we have to have a certain percentage in the
the
reserves?
undesignated fund.
Undesignated is what we have to have a certain percentage,
percentage.
okay.
And either one, to move funds from reserves or undesignated, we still do the amendment, and both have to go to the county commission for approval to move either
To move
one.
them, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, director's report?
Okay, I want to just, three brief things. I do want to congratulate Joanne and Mike for their win. I called them both that next morning, so very excited. So congratulations again. Glad that you're still on the board.
Thank you.
I do want to thank Wendy. I don't think people realize Wendy has had probably the hardest job in our system the past few weeks, and you know, we're very fortunate that we have Wendy. A lot of school systems, when they call me, Carter County's director just called me today and asked me a question, what do you do about this? I said, you need a person. I said, we have Wendy. You know, we're very fortunate that we do have a licensed nurse practitioner that can deal with all these issues. And but she has worked tirelessly, and again, they change rules every day, and she keeps on top of them, and she's our voice when she's on these calls with Dr. Kursky. She don't care to ask the tough questions or tell him what she thinks, and we appreciate that with her. So I do want to say
Well, thank
you. And I do want to know, do you want to go ahead and schedule a called board meeting? Because, you know, right now we're virtual the 17th through the 28th, and then we would reassess. Do we want to go ahead and set a date?
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be easier to do than.
Yeah.
So send us out some dates.
Send you out some
where
dates.
everybody can
Okay.
give you feedback.
I'll have Serena do that
What's
tomorrow.
it on Friday, I guess?
I guess it is, I don't,
28th would be on a Friday.
The 28th is on a Friday.
Okay, and then it would change then on Monday?
Yes.
yeah, we'd have
Okay,
to,
so that's,
we'd have to do it prior
have
to
to
the
do it prior to
28th.
that,
We
yeah.
we probably need to do it earlier in the week,
Yeah.
24th.
Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday
I missed something for
Either
what?
one of those
for the
work for
special
me.
call board meeting. Because we have to reassess our plan on the 28th.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah,
I missed that part that you were talking about.
yeah. So it'd either need to be that Monday or Tuesday.
Whichever, I'm,
Either's good for me.
either, it's good for
Either's
me.
good for me.
Okay. Do you want us just to send you out a?
Yeah,
Okay, Serena will do
Can you
that.
be here at 5?
Sure.
You-
yeah, I can be here at 5. Yeah, 5's about it, but yeah, I can be here by 5.
I mean, if we need to make it 6, it's fine.
No,
I
that's
just
fine.
want to make sure.
That's fine. I can get here by 5.
What date was that?
Well, we can either do the 24th or the 25th, Monday or Tuesday, I guess. Which would you prefer? We might know more, if we waited till the 25th, we would at least see the.
That's fine.
Okay, so the 25th? At 5 o'clock. Thank you, that's all I have.
Now, what about the fall district meeting? Are we still having it?
Serena just handed me that. We are still having that on September the 14th, and they have moved it. Was it Bristol? I think. They've moved it to Chucky Doak, so it went a little bit farther away for us. But I know she actually called TSBA, and they said, no, we are still having this. They just moved the location. So anybody that
And she
wants-
said she'd let me know
if
they
that
change
changes.
it, and I'll tell you as soon as I know.
And we will have a board meeting prior to that, so surely we'll know by then.
Oh, we were supposed to tell you if we was going to that or not, didn't you?
Not the fall district.
Okay.
Well, I assumed y'all would do the fall district. The one that I needed to know was the October one, which was the one that Paula and Stephen are going to. And that's in Knoxville,
The training?
the training.
What train is that?
I'm not.
They can come back and share information.
Oh,
I can resend it out and let you see the agenda.
yeah, I'll let you guys handle that one. On the fall district meeting, us wait till after the election to see.
I had faith.
Mike, do you have anything you want to bring up?
No, I just, I guess I need to thank everyone that helped me and put up signs and, went and collected signs for me and pulled for me. And, I think, I just want to thank everyone for their support and trust to put me back in here.
We're glad to have you back. Joanne?
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it's been an honor to be on the school board for the past 4 years, and I look forward to the next 4. And I do appreciate everyone's support. And I would like to thank everyone I know that you've worked really, really hard. And this is nothing's been easy, because everything does change from day to day. If you listen to the news, you know, everything's changed, but I appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
Kevin?
I just congratulate Mike, Joanne for getting back on there. It's, elections are hard, they're aggravating. And you guys that are doing all these things, that you always answer the questions before we ask them. We really do appreciate that. We got a good staff, a good bunch of teachers, I know, and I know they would rather be in school than try to figure out how we're gonna do it online.
And I want to echo that. Like I said at the beginning, I'm real glad that we didn't change the board. I think that, you know, for those of you who've been around, it's hard when you get new board members, and then you got all this work that you got to do to be able to work together. And of course, we can always disagree, but we've got, I think, a really good board. And I want to echo the same thing to all of you, to Wendy, to keep up with all this stuff, because you're responsible. And we appreciate you and all the work that you've done, and all the staff, because of the stuff that you all have done has been amazing. And, you know, virtual school is not going to be convenient for anybody, but the main thing is we've got to make sure our kids learn, because, you know, if you've got kids in school and they were out from last March through that, and then they lost learning in the summer, and then we're going to something different. That is really critical, and I really appreciate the teachers and the principals and all the staff who are working hard to make that succeed, and for everybody making sure that those contacts are so important, because like you say, a contact, and then you start doing this, you know, connect the dots, and people who are out, and I'm dealing with that myself, where a child in daycare, 2 years old, got COVID, brought it home to the mom who works for me, and now I'm doing all her work. I'm going in early and working her shifts, and they're out for an extended period of time. So it's complicated, and we appreciate you, Wendy. you and the health department. And Dr. Simcox, I wanna say to Dr. Simcox, I think you've done an amazing job of guiding us and keeping us on the straight line.
I have a wonderful staff. It's all about your staff.
And I want to say a public thank you to First Christian Church for reaching out. And, you know, there's other churches that have those big fellowship halls that y'all could reach out to and see if that was possible there too to accommodate kids. Because I'm kind of, the connections that Wendy has and then the connections I deal with Virginia Department of Health, I don't think this is going away in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. I think we're in for trouble. And as soon as flu season hits, when, you know, the flu symptoms are the same as COVID, and so as soon as flu hits, people are going to get flu, and then everybody's going to be quarantined because we're going to think it's possible COVID. And so, Wendy, get some sleep. Tell Leon to treat you right. All right. Anybody have anything else? Dr. Simcox, you have anything you want to add? All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we'd take a motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All right. We're adjourned.